So this plant may actually be challenging for you to see straight on, but you'll have to refer to the close-up because I have a number of plants actually planted in here. In fact, I had to remove one in order for you to be able to see this, but this one right here, the one with the flat top, is called Haworthia truncata var. Truncata. So it's a variation of Haworthia truncata. And truncate just means that it's like, you know, kind of shorter, or and that is actually referring to these interesting leaves here, which are very similar and have developed a similar capacity to lithops. So if you're familiar with lithops, that's the living stones. They have the windows. They're very, they look like little actual stones, and they kind of hide within their environment. And that's exactly what Haworthia truncata is doing. In fact, it has these really contractile roots that pull it deep down into the soil in times of drought. So this actually protects it from herbivores, which is like totally cool that it is able to be able to do this. And so it's similar to lithops in that matter that it really hides well within its environment, and that is mainly a safety feature so it doesn't get nibbled on. Now, the other thing I should say is that this plant can easily be sunburned. So initially I had a lot of my gasterias, which I could actually see some other gasterias here. This is a crassula right here, and my Haworthias. And in my southwest facing windows during the summer months, they can really get like a little miscolored or discolored because of the intensity of the sun. And even if you get like 15, 20, 30 minutes of sun that's really high intense, but constantly getting it over and over again, day in and day out, it will start to diminish some of the chlorophyll and harm the plant. So most of my gasteria and Haworthia are actually now pulled a little bit further away just because of the intensity of the sun that I get in my southwest facing window. These plants can grow out in the open and they can handle it to a certain degree, but they prefer to be in a little bit more like light shade, even though they're getting like a more direct, high direct or high indirect bright light. They would want some of that shade during the hottest and the sunniest hours of the day. The other thing to note is the growing medium that I'm growing these in. So you'll see that it's a very gritty kind of perlite-y mixture. I have some bonsai in here, bonsai soil, and also mixed in with a little bit more of succulent soil, but it's primarily that kind of gritty, porous mixture. And part of the reason for that is I just want some more aeration for these roots. I don't want them sitting in water, and these are plants that could get pretty mushy. It's not unusual for some of these roots actually to die back, so you want to be a little bit more mindful of that. There's so many different variations and forms and cultivars of Haworthia truncata, and even though they're actually easy to propagate, so you could get them on offsets, you could get them at leaf cuttings, you could get them as seeds, it takes a little while for them to actually look pretty good. So they can go for a pretty penny, especially if it's a really interesting form or variety. And you do see a lot of them. I mean, when I was over in Thailand, I saw a ton of Haworthia truncata, and they were all different kinds of, some had shorter leaves, some had thicker leaves, some were pretty wide, some were different colors. And I think that makes them a pretty interesting plant. So if you're kind of in that collector's mentality of collecting various different types of succulents, I really wanted to show you this one because I think it's just like unique and interesting. And I haven't showed as many of my Haworthias as maybe I could have because there are just so many different varieties and so many cultivars. But this one is a little bit more of like kind of the genuine Haworthia truncata species. This one you'll definitely see, and it'll be a little bit more iconic. And apologies that I don't have these like planted individually in their own thing. That was like one of the big difficult things with highlighting some of these succulents, because a lot of them I do have in container planters. So you're going to probably get sidetracked with the other plants, but you know, what can I do about that? The other thing I should probably make note of is just on the fertilizing. You know, if you just do it twice a year for these, I mean, they're not really heavy feeders. They're not going to be growing like a ton. You could do like a 2-4-7 or a 3-4-7. And as far as where it's growing, I don't know if I said this because I'm blanking now, but it is native to kind of the South Africa region there. And I think it has a pretty limited distribution, if I'm not mistaken. So in fact, it could actually even be threatened in its own habitat, but it is so popular in cultivation now that I don't think it's going to go extinct as far as people wanting to cultivate it goes, just because it is such a unique plant.